This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Wednesday, October the 1st. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. And I know Brian Callahan. Oh, big thanks to Callahan for sitting in for me on Monday while I made a 4-day weekend out of it. So I know he regaled you with some Blue Jays talk and some other sports talk, which I was really appreciating. So go Jays. And of course, the big question will become, who would you rather face, the Boston Red Sox or the New York Yankees? So the Yankees kind of laid an egg last night at Yankee Stadium. The Red Sox take game number 1. So if you're up for a bit of baseball conversation, please do. And I know Callahan also mentioned Ryder Cup and the boorish behavior of some of the American fans at Bethpage Black at the Ryder Cup. I don't think you're going to be able to see that kind of competition be held at that golf course ever again in the future. I mean, it was sheer and utter madness. But anyway, enjoyable to watch all the same as the Europeans hang on to win. All right, municipal elections around the province tomorrow, except for in St. John's. I've received, and I don't check my email necessarily very often when I'm off, but I did over the course of the weekend and yesterday and Monday, just because there's so many big issues on the go. Now, I didn't reply to too many, so if you really need me to see an email, please resend it. So, in town, the election will now be on October the 8th. And, of course, plenty of mail-in ballots. There's some confusion out there, beginning with the fact that the voter list is simply not updated to the point where it needs to be. People, and I've told you the story many times, I just picked this one particular family. Mom and dad still live in the family home. The kids moved out, but yet, lo and behold, they had 7 ballots. Moms and dads and their kids, and for people who used to live in that home, which is unbelievable. Now with the issue, and good on Canada Post for sending some of their striking workers back into the post office to try to to get the ballots that were stuck in the system. People worry about this. Now, when they talk about some of the safeguards that are in place, and one thing, and this is a direct quote from the lady representing the city on this particular election. There is no risk for duplicate ballots to be counted, as ballots that aren't confirmed received will be invalidated before a replacement voting kit is issued. So the Canada Post issue, whether or not they get legislated back to work or whatever the case may be, but this is a huge wrinkle into the St. John's election. Hopefully it doesn't impact people's faith in the integrity of the election, but if you want to take it on, we can do it. One story that got floated to me dozens of times was the report that there was going to be healthcare cuts and 5 key areas. And of course, obviously, when people hear that, they get their back up for the obvious reasons. The healthcare system, even though we spend $4 billion-ish per year on healthcare, and we know about the wait time issue and access to primary care, all of these types of things. But when questioned, John Hogan was said there will be 0 cuts to the healthcare system, not 1 penny. Did make reference to the fact that NL Health Services CEO Dr. Pat Parfrey has said many times in the past, with the amount of what he calls unnecessary testing, eliminate some of that, and of course there's cost savings achieved there. People also worry about what's referred to as unnecessary testing, but you know full well there's plenty of tests that are ordered because the family is worried, the patient is worried, and or they come in demanding X test or Y test, and so maybe there's some savings there. On top of that, we will continue to ask the major question about achieving savings, identifying redundancies, when the 4 regional health authorities were amalgamated into 1. What became of that? We were told there was something there, but I haven't heard much about it. Your thoughts? You want to take it on? Oh, this one's not huge in the world of healthcare, but it's an interesting topic brought forward by one of our Twitter followers. He said a topic for discussion on the show. We were 15 hours in emerge yesterday. Nowhere to plug in your phone in the seating area. Bottled water, $3.50 a pop. So, when, for instance, you go to the airport or other places, and you can have a water refilling station. Not necessarily bottled water, but just hooked right into the water system inside the hospital where you can just refill your water bottle. I thought that was an interesting topic, albeit not the biggest one on the face of the earth, but there you go. Also, plenty of questions flying in about the status of the Aging Well grant. Now, we have heard Premier Hogan talk about doubling it from $400 to $800. Same thing with the caregiver benefit. Some things have changed, and let's get into it. Eligibility criteria did change this year. So it's $32,000 for single applicants. It used to be $24,999. $48,000 for couples. It was previously $35,000. So the application deadline was the 28th of February earlier this year. But I'm told by many who are eligible that the money has not flowed as of yet. A couple of things that are important. If you applied and were approved for the Aging Well at Home grant in the past, you do not need to reapply. Your application will get reviewed and processed with the information that you've already provided. Same thing with the caregiver benefit. So it would be nice to know exactly where that money is, because once again, when you talk about the dozens of emails, plenty of questions about exactly where is that money. It's a good thing, and it can be used for snow clearing or grocery delivery or whatever you need to spend it on. And one of the strange caveats inside this program is people are encouraged to keep receipts just in case they're asked about how they spent their $400. For starters, regardless of who's going to form the next government, can we not be that foolish and that level of bureaucracy to ask a 75-year-old senior about how they spent their $400? If they spent it to get the path shoveled, or they spent it on their heat bill, or they spent it on whatever, that's it. Let's not chase people around for receipts about how they spent $400. What do you think? All right, let's go. And in the world of aging well, we hear some announcements about building seniors living units in Lab West and affordable housing, and the NDP talk about building 1,000 units per year in the affordability envelope. Still not hearing much about the cost-benefit analysis and the emotional cost-benefit analysis about staying in your own home longer. Again, some of these things that get a lot of conversation during the course of a 4-year term, when it comes campaign time, and we can get into promises and spending and tax cuts, and of course, none of the parties talking about doing anything about the debt, anything about addressing the deficit, because it's easy to promise, and it's hard to be thrifty. No one wants to hear about cuts. No one wants to hear about jobs being lost. No one wants to hear about efficiencies with compromised counter service, as they say. But anyway, you want to get into it. And one of the announcements regarding some additional spend, and it's hard to argue with this one necessarily, is 24-hour, 7 days a week snow clearing. Now, already, there's 24/7 snow clearing in certain parts of the province. So reinstating it, Mr. Wakeham, of course, made this pledge, is that he says it was a Liberal mistake to do away with it. It wasn't done away with in full, but fair enough. Then it's extending moose fencing. I don't think that's a bad idea either. And of course, if the fence doesn't go from coast to coast with no gaps other than cattle gates to allow for the flow of animals and people and their quads or whatever, there's always going to be the possibility for moose to be trapped on the wrong side of the fence. But, as I've mentioned, when you travel out of town and you're on that stretch of highway that is covered by the moose fence, it does, and of course, you can't just, rest on your laurels and become complacent and think that, there's impossible for a moose to be there, because it is obviously possible. But for folks who are concerned on that front, as the motoring public, let's do it. All right, there's also talk of creating a crown corporation, and this is the NDP once again, and I kind of hesitant to dig in on all the promises made by various parties, because if you miss one, all of a sudden you're siding with one party or another, which I have no interest in. But the concept of a crown corporation responsible for recruiting and retaining healthcare professionals. I'm always wary of adding any layer of bureaucracy, even though something as critically important as making sure that people in the province have an equitable shot at access to primary care. Of course, there's already a deputy minister responsible. And yes, there's some recruiting done by the department, there's some recruiting done by NL Health Services, but I get the concept of streamlining it, bringing it all under one roof, but with what's already been established as recruiting teams and a deputy minister, or pardon me, an ADM responsible for, it just feels like we're overcomplicating, which is already a very complicated matter, but adding a standalone crown corporation with that responsibility, I'm not so sure, adding bureaucracy is exactly what we need. And obviously, with all the pledges about adding X number of law enforcement officers or healthcare professionals and establishing the 35 collaborative care clinics, what have you, still no real detail on about how to attract someone to work in some of the more rural, isolated, remote parts of the province and country. Not a whole lot there. Like, for starters, unless the comment off the top is, we will ensure, one, housing for someone who's going to be wooed or lured or recruited or incentivized to operate in one part of the province or another, as opposed to really leaning in on the expansion of locum opportunities for healthcare pros, which I think probably is not perfect, because it doesn't mean a permanent access to a family doctor or a nurse practitioner or whatever the case may be where you live. But it's probably more manageable in the realistic world. Just 1 second, a quick sip of coffee. We're back. Also, just mentioned housing. So we hear plenty of people talking about incentive for first-time home buyers, including Mr. Din yesterday, the NDP, talking about, or one day this week, talking about doubling the finances for people who are first-time home buyers. It's a feel-good. Look, I get it. When I was a first-time home buyer, any additional financial support would have been most welcome in our household, as opposed to the scrimping and saving to come up with a down payment to meet the mortgage stress test, all those things. But realistically, we have a supply problem. You know, I know if you're a first-time home buyer out there and you're thinking, I really like that idea, I get it. Any little bit of help is absolutely most welcome. But ginning up the demand side when we have a supply side issue is kind of counterintuitive, as far as I can tell. And I don't know about you, but also, what does that do for the prices of homes? When first-time home buyers have a bit more flexibility to get in what is a very competitive landscape, and multiple bids coming in on properties is probably the go-to, and it's more often the case than not, then more money means more bids, means higher home prices. I'm not so sure we're hitting the affordability target by ginning up the demand side, but anyway, your thoughts. Also, in the world of frequent emails regarding campaign promises and or pledges or questions, is there a reason why this province has not signed on to the National Pharmacare Program? Curiously, I saw a story in the news this morning about a gentleman being interviewed who's a diabetic, and so is his wife, and spending, $1,400 a year on supplies, when that's one of the two areas covered by the National Pharmacare Program. If there's a good reason why we're not in, why doesn't someone just let us know? Because as taxpayers, I'm already contributing to that program. And so is the gentleman who was being questioned about, or asking questions of every party as to, are we going to sign on? The Prime Minister apparently talked about encouraging and negotiating with all the provinces and territories to sign on, but there's several that haven't. And is there some reason why? Because I don't really necessarily get it. If you want to take it on, we can do it. All right, and then I'm kind of tired going through these promises, but, back to school. I mean, we blocked the bus here in the Single Parent Association with all the work they do to try to help families who don't have the money to get some backpack supplies in hand. Scribblers and pencils and colouring leads and all the rest of it. So Premier Hogan talking about the fact that there's some 63,000 plus students in the K-12 system as of January 2024. Talk about adding $3 million in additional funding, which breaks down to about $48 per student, to get free school supplies for students from pre-kindergarten to grade 6, beginning next September. I hear the stories. I mean, we have people coming to us all the time looking for some help to supply their child to go back to school. And so, I mean, it's hard to say that this is a bad idea, but would it not be a little bit more efficient if we were talking about a means test? A certain level of income, because for the folks like in and around town, there's plenty of people that are struggling, but there's also tons of money around. Would it not be better to have a bit more of a keen focus on who really needs the help versus just throw the doors open and everybody gets $48 per? You're not getting $48 cash, but you're getting those free supplies. When many families, including families listening to this program this morning, they don't struggle as mightily as other families with back to school. So maybe that $48 per student could be $68 per student if folks who are high-income earners weren't also part of the plan. But your thoughts? Anyway, let's go. And talking about money, and this one is a real huge issue, and it's funding and what's going on at emergency women's shelters. For starters, the fact that so many women and their children have to run for their very life to look for a spot in an emergency shelter is a story that does not get enough attention because it's traumatic, it's emotional, but the less we talk about it or the infrequency with which we bring it up, then of course the problem just persists. So there's a lot to it. But for them to struggle like they are, now Lisa Slaney is being interviewed in this particular story. Of course, she's managing the Grace Sparks House down in Marystown, and she's more than welcome to join us to talk about the funding. The numbers of people that are looking for emergency shelter is growing. but funding has not grown commensurate with the need. In addition to that, so the unionized employees, they negotiate directly with the government, but no inclusion with the shelters. So their costs to operate go up simply based on benefits and salaries for their unionized workers, but the funding has not grown with that additional expense. We can't see this be the case. Look, they talk about it, Grace Sparks. They've missed payroll twice this year with the important work they're doing, and still have to go to the government to remind them that, look, my operating costs went up based on negotiated contracts with our unionized employees, but the shelter funding has not. So they'll make reference to the fact that Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation has provided, $9.2 million in funding last year. That's fine. But if that 9.2 is not enough, because, we can't just say everything requires more money, because that's not necessarily the case, but the Mercy Women's Shelters, if the funding has not increased, but the government has negotiated higher salaries and benefits for people working in the shelters, let's try to dovetail one that is hand in glove with the other. Your thoughts? All right. How are we doing out there, David? A couple of very quick ones before we get to you. So ExxonMobil apparently slashing some 2,000 jobs, about 4% of their global workforce, and talking about what impacts might be in Canada, which begs the question, what might be the impact here? I have no idea, but we're trying to chase it to see what those numbers look like. Then we're told that on the federal level, the next wave of nation-building projects will be announced within the next month. Lots of focus in on the Arctic and Arctic sovereignty and critical minerals in the north, what have you. But in this province, people will ask the questions. Obviously, the three projects that would be in consideration, Bay to Nord. So I don't know how that constitutes a nation-building project, but there's potential for federal government involvement to cover off all the hundreds of millions of dollars in royalties that will be flown to the United Nations. Then, of course, people will talk about the fixed link. The Liberals themselves have called it a nation-building project. It's at the Infrastructure Bank of Canada, so will that be included? Then the last one, and the big conversation here in this province for many people, is Gull Island, the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding, and all the questions surrounding it. We're happy to take it on here on the program. Last one. So I try not to watch much in the way of American news. I read enough to make sure I'm informed of what, as best I can, with what's going on down there. So while the government has shut down in the United States, still babbling on in incoherent rambles about 51st state nonsense. Is that ever going to go away? And how are not all Canadians just irritated by that? How can that just be something that people think is okay? And last one, as per congressional testimony in front of a congressional committee, apparently there's at least one Canadian, and in this case a Canadian billionaire, who has been directly implicated regarding interaction with Jeffrey Epstein. So you might think it's just an American story, but apparently not. And not wanting to identify, investigate, prosecute, and punish people who have been involved in child sex trafficking, I don't get it. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, Jim's in the queue. I don't know if we're going to start with Jim, but he found a pair of rubbers. That's a good one. And then we'll speak with you with whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Quickly, to correct myself, is when I was talking about a potential for a Crown Corporation for recruitment and retention of healthcare professionals. That's not an NDP campaign pledge. That's a Liberal campaign pledge, and you heard what I had to say about it. Let's go to line number 7. Say good morning to Dr. Leslie Phillips, professor at Memorial University and working at the Medication Therapy Clinic. I believe now retired. Dr. Phillips, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty, and that's correct. I am retired, which means I have lots of time to call in to you.
And I appreciate you making time for the program. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much. Patty, I wanted to take a few minutes of everyone's time this morning to talk about what is absolutely the most important thing that we need to do if we're really serious about improving our healthcare system, saving lives, and reducing healthcare expenditures. So our government, following the Newfoundland Health Accord, did set a goal to move towards becoming the healthiest province by 2031. And I'm going to submit to you that it's simply not possible to ever get there if we do not manage the number one cause of preventable morbidity and mortality and healthcare costs in our province. And that is, of course, tobacco use and its underlying driver, which is nicotine addiction. And it is an addiction. It's not a bad habit. And, you know, the tobacco settlement is an extraordinary opportunity that we have to invest in the health and economical well-being of our population now, but also for generations to come. And we know, despite initial plans, Patty, not all of it ended up as a down payment on the 2024-25 deficit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic in and of itself. I mean, money that we don't even have, and we've, put it on the books already, which is something that has been defended quite aggressively by the government, even though I don't quite make sense of it all the same. So let's talk about smoking cessation, because, there was a number of years ago, the government was talking about that, but then they were doing it based on income, and for low-income earners would be able to access it. But of course, nicotine and the cigars or the cigarettes, they don't know how much money you make. The implications are the same for my overall health. So where should we be going? How do we think about this?
Well, I want to talk about death, disease, and money, if I can. Because tobacco affects all of us, and I think there are a lot of people out there think, oh, this is not important to me, I don't smoke. But let's talk about death. In Newfoundland, we've got about 55,600 current smokers. Smoking kills 1 in 2 smokers prematurely. So that means 27,800 of those individuals will die earlier than they should have from a tobacco-related illness. In fact, about 1,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians die every year in this province from a smoking-caused illness. And in fact, the number of deaths due to tobacco each year in this province exceeds all other substances of abuse combined. So that's death. Now, some people might say, well, they're dead, so they won't cost us anything after that. But so let's talk about disease, because for every smoker that dies, 20 more are currently living with a tobacco-related disorder. And Patty, smoking causes at least 16 types of cancer, but it's the leading preventable cause of lung cancer deaths. And a lot of people may not be aware of this, but tobacco control actually prevents 98% of lung cancer deaths, and I'll compare that with just 2% prevented by lung screening, which, by the way, we pay for. So that's a compelling figure, 98% of lung cancer deaths. And, smoking also the leading preventable cause of cardiovascular disease and COPD deaths. And in fact, it's the most effective treatment in stopping the progression of COPD. And there's dozens of other illnesses too, Patty. I could go on about those, but in the interest of time, I won't. And I want to talk about costs. More than 30% of hospital beds are occupied by adults who are there because of a smoking-related illness. Tobacco costs our system tens of millions of dollars every year in direct healthcare costs and lost productivity. I have figures. For 2020, Newfoundland's direct healthcare costs were estimated at $123 million. That's from smoking. It's higher than alcohol, again, and all the other substances of abuse. And our productivity losses were $136 million. So we're spending $123 million a year on health care costs related to tobacco use. Smoking cessation, the most powerful intervention we can deliver. In fact, the greatest impact on annual deaths is preventative measures. We all know that. Smoking cessation, physical activity, vaccination provide far greater benefits than things like pap smears and mammograms and lung cancer screening and treating diseases after they've already occurred. And, it amazes me that we don't pay more attention to it, because treating tobacco use disorder is probably one of the least expensive and the most cost-effective things we can do. A quit attempt costs you about $500 to $1,000. Well, how much does it cost to diagnose and treat lung cancer or heart disease or COPD? A lot more than that, and we pay for those willingly. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we're forgetting the most important part of all of this, which is prevention. And we know now with high certainty evidence, that reducing the cost of cessation for smokers increases quit attempts and quit rate success significantly at long-term follow-up. There's simply no reason not to do it.
Okay, so let's talk about how it would work. So are we talking about you simply go to the pharmacy and those cessation tools will be free of charge, maybe with a dispensing fee or something? Or how would people get access to whatever, because there's a variety of different tools?
Yeah. So a little while ago, Patty, a bunch of us who are in the field, and including individuals living experience with tobacco, we got together. And we formed the Coalition for Nicotine-Free Newfoundland. And as part of that, we have created a position paper that we will present to government about what needs to be done and how to do it. And we actually have a summary of recommendations. But obviously, one of those that's big on the list and near and dear to me is universal access to quit medications. And there are a number of different ways it can be done. One way that can happen is that people can, yes, go to their pharmacy and can automatically bill. Other provinces have a mail-out or a quit card voucher that people who are enrolled in programs to quit smoking have access to that covers the cost of their medications. So there's lots of different ways that I think that we can do this.
Fair enough. Before I have to get to the break and another call, would you like to add anything this morning while we have you, Dr. Phillips?
Sorry, Patty, I missed that.
Before I have to go, would you like to add anything else?
Well, I don't want to forget about youth vaping. So that's a big part of this. The youth vaping crisis is a manufactured epidemic of youth addiction by a tobacco industry that's seeking to revitalize its sales and create a new generation of nicotine addicts. And we know, Patty, that there's all kinds of implications from that, including an increased risk of going on to smoke in the future, as well as an increased risk for uptake of other substances of abuse. So we can't talk about smoking cessation without talking about youth and their use of nicotine. So we're going to present a comprehensive plan to help prevent youth access to and uptake of nicotine products, but also to expand our programs for smoking cessation and our coverage of smoking cessation meds to help current nicotine users to quit.
I really appreciate the time, Dr. Phillips. Enjoy your retirement. Stay in touch.
I sure will. Thank you so much, Patty.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
As now retired Dr. Leslie Phillips, look, I mean, obviously, big topic. Anything in the world of preventative medicine, given the fact that the most expensive thing in the country is a night in the hospital, always a solid plan. Will I take Jim before we get to the break? Yeah, let's do that. Let's go to line number one. Jim, you're on the air.
Yeah, Patty, first thing, the previous caller there, she had no idea how difficult it is for a smoker to quit. Number two, she reminds me exactly of President Trump and Tylenol.
What?
And the last and final, I think she's full of it. Now, the reason I called...
Just a second, though, Jim. That's what she actually did for a living, is research and do work in smoking cessation and the healthcare implications of smoking.
Yeah, well, I quit many years ago, and I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. But anyway, I quit. But as far as I'm concerned, she reminds me of Trump when Trump gets on with his bull, and that's exactly. But anyway, the reason I called was that I found a dandy pair of rubbers on the Trans-Canada Highway westbound between Ocean Pond and Whitburn, and this happened on Monday afternoon. And now I don't know if Dave has my number automatically or if I should give it to him. Yeah,
no, we have it. It's right on my screen. Dave will keep it if anyone has lost their rubbers because Jim found them.
Yeah, just give me a call and identify them, and they're welcome to come and get them.
Good man. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye. And I mean, I don't think that about Dr. Phillips, to be honest with you. But let's keep going here. Let's take a break. When we get back, Dave will let us know who's next. I've got a couple of candidates in the queue. We're going to talk about the Upper Churchill MOU and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number two. Say good morning to one of the candidates running for a council position in Portugal Cove, St. Phillips. That's Gavin Will. Good morning, Gavin. You're on the air.
Paddy, thank you for having me today.
Happy to do it.
I just wanted to call to let residents of Portugal Cove St. Phillips know that voting is tomorrow. And there is some confusion about St. John's out there, but there is no issue with the mail-in ballots in our community. So rest assured about that. I just wanted to call in to let people know about basically what I've been hearing on the doorsteps, and people have been very responsive to my responses. There's been a lot of people are hurting in our community financially, like everywhere, particularly people on fixed incomes, seniors in particular, and the message that I'm taking away from that is that we have to do two things. We have to be extra careful with our spending. Increasing taxes is not an option. I'm also hearing that people expect better value for their tax dollar, and I think that what we've seen in this in our community over the last couple of years kind of reflects the concerns that a lot of residents have that this council has not always been spending money on their priorities. So I guess those are some of the takeaways that I've been
at the municipal level. How do you measure value for property tax? Because there's only a few different streams of revenue for a municipality: property tax and development fees and water fees and those types of things. So, how would a resident measure value? Because many things that the municipality will be responsible for are not the big sexy items. Hopefully clean potable water, picking up my garbage, taking care of the roads, fixing the potholes. Sewer systems, what have you. So, how do you measure value at the municipal level?
I guess that's exactly what I mean. Is that we have to have we have to focus on those essential services, and when it comes to making investments in kind of non-core expenditures, we have to be a bit more creative. I'll give you an example. Walking trails are very, very popular. We just built a brand new walking trail. The town built a brand new walking trail here on the Broad Cove River, and it was something that I took a lead in while on council. But there's federal money that's available to assist with that. So I think we have to look at those other sources of funding, and for areas that are not water and sewer, and sidewalks, those kind of core municipal functions.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because depending on who you are, people have different sets of priorities. If I live somewhere where speeding is out of control, and I know Portugal Cove St. Phillips has brought in some bylaw officer control of things like it, but if it's speeding because I live on the main drag, or it's the quality of the roads, or it's the sewer system, that's where I was going with the value question, because it's hard to measure on the big scheme of things municipally. Provincially, probably a little bit different, whether it be about, of course, roads and all the things that people talk about, but something like big broad stroke, which impacts everybody, healthcare. So that's why I was questioning the value conversation at the municipal level.
Yeah, well, politics is hyper-local at the municipal level, obviously.
Absolutely.
And so you're absolutely right. What you hear on Thorburn Road and Portugal Cove, where there's a lot of traffic, is a bit more nuanced. Its differences from more kind of out of the way or areas of town. But there are a few issues that come up time and time again, and one is pedestrian safety. People want to be able to walk down their street, and I hear this everywhere. And it's an issue that's not really taken center stage, but when you actually get out on the doorstep, that's what comes up time and time again.
Yeah, of course it does. There's obviously some overlap regardless of who you are, where you are. Gavin, anything else this morning while we have you?
Well, I just want to encourage people to get out and vote tomorrow. There are a lot of candidates running. There's 16 candidates running for 6 positions on council, and three candidates for mayor. It's a very competitive race, and I encourage everybody to get out, because, as you just pointed out, municipal politics affects people on their doorstep. So get out there, folks, and vote.
Appreciate the time, Gavin. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. And I mean, just to pick up on the first point you made is, other than St. John's, the rest of the province, the polls do indeed close tomorrow, October the 2nd, in your municipal elections. Just very quickly, via an email I just saw out of the corner of my eye regarding anything I said about Beta Nord and whether or not it constitutes a nation-building project. I'm not so sure it does, but you know, I wonder how Equinor's final investment decision is looking these days. I mean, they've done some of the upfront work and talk about contracting a contractor to build the FPSO. And yes, we can talk about ensuring maximum number of jobs onshore if and when that benefits agreement gets negotiated. But I mean, you look at the price of a barrel of oil today, around $65. The most recent provincial budget had a forecasted price on annualized average of just over $73. The Canadian dollar at 72 cents. I mean, there's a lot that's going on there. There's forecasts of oil prices slumping into the 50s. I mean, there's just a punishing oversupply of oil out there on the market. And of course, we know that it's manipulated quite severely and aggressively by the major oil-producing countries in this world, and specifically the cartel that is OPEC. But you wonder how that's all factoring in on where we go and how we get there regarding what might be the province's last offshore development. Possibly. I don't think that's an exaggeration to think that or to say that or enter into that conversation. Let's get to the break. When we come back, hopefully we have a clean phone line to talk with Alvin Hewlett about the Upper Churchill MOU, and then you don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Alvin. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. A lively show there this morning.
So far, so good. Alvin, let me put you on hold. Dave will get you a nice, clear phone line so we can have a conversation. Let's see here. Let's go to line number 6. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Patty. I'm going to call myself Mainlander.
Okay. Good morning, Mainlander.
Yeah, hi. I'm here to try to talk people out of voting for the Liberals, because what they're doing to this province is a disgrace. The Carney government just announced, their budget officer just announced that Carney's about to drive the budget into the ground and bankrupt the whole country. That's Liberals doing that. Now,
well, that's not what the parliamentary budget officer said. He didn't say the government's going to drive the country into bankruptcy. He did say...
He's right there. He's right there. He's right on the precipice, he said, and looking over the cliff. That's where Carney is right now.
Yeah, he said it's unsustainable and no fiscal anchors. But, of course, we haven't even seen a budget, so nobody really knows exactly what's going to be in it.
Yeah, but once he does that, what's his choices to regain this money? He either taxes us or he stops spending, and he's not stopping spending because he's here to destroy this country, and the Hogan Liberals here are going right along with it.
How so?
Well, just look at all the immigrants coming in. That's part of the World Economic Forum strategy. They're all coming in. If we're not smart and stop that right now, we're going to be in the same situation as England, France, Ireland, Australia. That's coming here.
Do you really go with the World Economic Forum boogeyman? Is that something you subscribe to in full?
Did you see Carney over there talking with Stammer, talking about digital ID? That's coming too.
Well, it might be coming to the United Kingdom. I think we could.
Ever heard of the World Economic Forum?
Yeah, of course I have, but I just think that we give them so much stock and so much importance when in fact they have no say on anything.
You can see the World Economic Forum plan coming right out now, and the Hogan and the NDP are all going along with it. And before long, you won't be able to walk in the streets here. Our crime rate is going up faster than anywhere in Canada. And Hogan and them are not even talking about it. They're just making promises that they cannot keep because the country's about to go bankrupt. So you got to look at the whole situation now. You can't just concentrate on Newfoundland. You got to look at the whole picture and who's doing what. Carney was brought in to destroy us.
And what are you talking about? Carney was brought in by who?
Pardon me?
Who was Carney brought in by?
He's the global elite. That's who's doing this. Larry Fink is now in charge of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then you got Carney. And every country that these people are, the West, they targeted the West. So it's all the Western countries that this is happening. Mass immigration, bankrupt the country. Oh, and that's how they Stelmer brought in his digital ID. Oh, we're doing it to get rid of the illegal immigrant. That's just to control you so they can shut off your bank accounts like Trudeau did.
Okay.
Control you.
So
you don't believe that?
No, I think a lot of it's exaggerated nonsense, to be honest with you. And what percentage of crime in this province do you think is committed by a newcomer?
I don't know.
It'd be helpful.
I just know I can see what's happening. Why don't you Google England and those places and see the riots in the street? That's because of Islam. They're being flooded with Islamics. Carney even came out and said, we're Islam. Like, how much more proof do you need before this place is overrun and we're out fighting in the streets? That's what's coming.
But he didn't say that either. He was talking about people's personal values.
I'm saying that. Yeah. That's the result of what they do. And by that time, it's too late, and Stelmer says, oh, we can control immigration, and we'll just get a digital ID, and Carney's in the audience clapping.
Well,
now he's getting...
Because Keir Starmer says something doesn't have to have any impact directly on Canadian immigration policy and or numbers. I mean, in fact, the federal government, on all silos of immigration, have cut the numbers back.
No, they haven't. You can see it when you're walking in the street, Patty, for God's sake. They're everywhere now.
Listen, who's they?
India.
I thought Muslims were the problem.
India, Pakistan, all the Muslims, Sharia law. That's what they're trying to impose. Well, you got to start watching some news.
I think I'm pretty well up on the news.
What?
I think I'm pretty well up on the news.
I don't think you are. You can't see what they're going to do to this province. And Hogan's in there, and he's going to let it happen.
John Hogan isn't in charge of immigration numbers to Canada.
Why would you install Fury right when COVID's starting to start?
Who installed him? He was elected.
You get a doctor in, and then he says, oh, take the bioweapon. It'll help you. It'll prevent this, prevent that, put on the mask, do all this, and all that.
You're playing all the hits. Yeah, you're playing all the hits. Yeah, you're hitting all the...
know, and it's all a lie.
What is?
And this province is doomed if you vote in Liberals.
What's a lie?
You are doomed. What?
What was the most recent lie you're referring to there? COVID? What about COVID was a lie?
All of it. The masks didn't work. The shots didn't prevent...
They did.
Contaminants. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
It was actually dropping children in sports. They were dying.
Of course. I mean, what are you getting on with is one, I think, fundamental question.
Situation, if this province doesn't wake up soon, this whole province is in big trouble.
Yeah. So when we talked about COVID and restrictions, what have you, it's fascinating that people hang their hat on it being a Liberal issue. I mean, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada at the time was talking about the exact same thing insofar as vaccination goes. Conservative premiers across the country were doing the exact same thing. John Hogan doesn't have any control over immigration numbers to Canada, whether it be pathway to permanent residency, refugees, targeted skilled immigration, none of it.
He could be protecting us from Carney right now. He could be doing like Daniel Smith and stop collecting the carbon tax. That's a fraud too. That's climate change. That's a bunch of crap.
It's not. It's real. It's real, and it's a problem.
Trump already called it the greatest con job of a lifetime.
Well,
and he's right.
One of your mistakes is to take anything that Donald Trump says with anything other than a huge grain of salt.
Yeah, and he's also going to be on the list. I know that, too. And there's going to be more that come out on that list, too. I heard you talking about that. And there's a saying about these global elite. They're all at it.
Maybe.
So that's how bad this is.
Just one quick question about the World Economic Forum, because I really do, at some part, I find it interesting. Oh, will you stop talking for a second? So the World Economic Forum was created and started in 1971, and the stock that people give to its impact on the global stage is remarkable to me. I mean, it's the slowest moving coup in the history of man. for me, what the World Economic Forum is for starters, a bunch of hypocrites on their private jets telling me that I shouldn't be able to fly to Halifax to go to a concert. Then they are the most egotistical bunch of blowhards, and that's about all they are. So we give them all this stock about all the influence they have in the world, but since 1971, what have they actually achieved? Zero. Nothing. Nada.
They've infiltrated the West. Australia, England, France, they're all rioting. And it's because of them and the global elites.
The riots are because of the World Economic Forum, boys, oh boys. And it's hard to have it's hard to have a conversation with someone like you who just bangs on about jumping all over the map of all of these things that you think are ruining your life. I don't know how people operate day to day.
I'm trying to give you a warning because listen, media is in this too. Don't forget that too.
Oh yeah,
BBC,
we're all in on it.
They actually brought in. Trudeau said it was okay to lie to the people. It's an actual law now. It's okay to do that. And CBC does that on a daily basis. So, and you kind of sticking up for him too. So
sticking up for who?
Your media. You don't give a forget it. You can go now.
Oh, I can. I have your permission. Yeah. Why should I be concerned and how much time should I spend on worrying about what other media outlets do when I have this job? And I do this job. That wasn't me. I didn't drop him. I think he just ditched the city. Well, I was grateful he gave me permission to go. That was really very kind of him. There was a lot to that. Really hard to know where to start or whether to bother. But look, things like immigration. Again, I say it all the time. It's one of the trickiest conversations in the country. Then you look at some of the stats kind of numbers that we just got for here in this province. Over a quarter of the population is over the age of 65. The median age in this province is around 47. The death rate outpaces the birth rate every year and has for year over year. If we talk about the appropriate level of immigration, because immigration is not a catch-all either, right? You have targeted skilled trades, you have targeted healthcare recruitment, you have refugees, asylum seekers, people on the pathway to permanent residency. So there's a lot of different things included in immigration. And yes, the cap on international students was reduced. And I see a story floated around about temporary foreign workers and saying that the government has a cap. I can't remember the exact number, but people want me to believe that they exceeded it by a wide margin when in fact the number is that they've reduced temporary foreign workers. They've actually talked about the renewal of temporary foreign workers, so there weren't people added to further complicate the housing problem, to further complicate access to health care. I've said repeatedly that the population grew too big too fast. Why? We weren't prepared on the ground. There wasn't enough in the way of housing supply. There wasn't enough in the way of access to primary health care. So I can only say that so many times, and I've been consistent with it throughout. But without targeted immigration in this province, we're setting ourselves up. We just are. The temporary foreign worker program is a great case study in how the immigration conversation gets blunted before it gets going. And, I see floating in here, why didn't I just call him racist? Look, again, that's how we derail conversations. I'm happy enough to have a realistic, pragmatic conversation. And yes, I am not falling for the fact that the World Economic Forum is going to ruin my life. They've been trying since 1971. I was 2 years old. What impact have they really had here in this province? Let's be honest. What are we talking about? A bunch of, yes, elites, because if you have your own private aircraft, you probably are an elite. They go over to Davos, they babble on with their own self-righteousness, the egomaniacs run amok, and we're supposed to believe that they're going to be able to influence sovereign issues? No, they can just talk and babble and beat their chest and pump their own tires. But that's really about the size of it, isn't it? Let's see here. Let's take a break. Hopefully we have a clean phone line to speak with Alvin about the MOU. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 2. Alvin, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty.
Good morning.
That last call you had, I'd rather you than me. I guess you better hide under your desk because it looks like the economists are coming from all over Europe to do you in.
Yeah, well, I'll see them later.
Listen, as you know, I'm with NL Concerned Citizens, and we're one of the letter-writing groups, but I'm not calling you this morning about printed matter. Dr. May, economist at MUN, Doug May, has done some video work, some audio-video work on the MOU thing, and he entrusted his raw product to our committee, and we had some technical experts work on it and so on and so forth. And now the videos that he's done on the MOU are available for public viewing. We've put them on YouTube, and I've looked at them. They're very easy to understand, easy to access, and so on and so forth. The videos can be accessed as follows. Now, this is a link, I think that computer people call it, Churchill Falls MOU Analysis by Dr. Doug May. Churchill Falls MOU Analysis by Dr. Doug May. I gather that with your magic computer machines these days will take you to the videos, and you can, get a cup of coffee and sit down and watch. And, Petty, I've been a political animal all my life, but, Dr. May is not a political person. He's got a PhD in economics, so he deals with these matters in a sort of dispassionate, measured, methodical way. He's not selling anything, really, except what he considers to be the numerical truth, for want of a better phrase. Fatty, I was one of many who spoke out on Muskrat years ago, and now I'm part of a citizens group, demanding that the province vet the MOU with Quebec. I don't think the government is listening, but Patty, I'm beginning to believe that the general public is actually listening, picking up on this. Just think of it this way. If one economist trashes the MOU, that's an opinion. If a dozen economists trashes the MOU, that's a phenomenon, and it's time for the province to sit up and take notice, I think. The other thing I want to mention, Patty, is that's my wife's name, Peggy. Sorry. The Truth and Reconciliation Day was yesterday, and one thing I got to compliment the Indigenous peoples about is the special role they give to their elders in all their major decision making. Now, I don't claim Indigenous status, obviously, but I am an elder, and in my lifetime, I've seen us blot our copybook twice on the Churchill River. The old saying is once bitten, twice shy. Well, we've been twice bitten. So
before we go any further, Alvin,
thrice shy.
Yeah, the generalities of it being a good deal or a bad deal, fair enough. People have their own opinions, but do you want to latch on to a couple of specifics? You mentioned the Indigenous group, and so far as I can tell, the Innu Nation have been quite clear on this. Given the most recent rate mitigation at Muskrat, the last $5.2 billion package, they say that compromises their revenue about $1 billion, and consequently, until they're made whole, there will be no Gull Island. And whether or not people like it or not, the Constitution's clear, and they need to consult with Indigenous communities when we're talking about developments like this. So that hasn't been much of the conversation. But insofar as bad deal, as opposed to just 1969 all over again, here we go. Any specifics you'd like to throw into the conversation?
Well, look, Petty, you know of Bill Wells. He used to be the boss of Hydro years ago.
He's been on the show.
And if I'm an elder, he certainly is, put it that way. And I got an email from him the other day, and he sent me some facts and figures and stuff with regard to the MOU, but it was his conclusion that really, really struck me. And what he basically said was this: because of the way this deal is structured, no matter how it looks from the outside, Quebec will get 90% of the gravy on the MOU, the same as is getting 90% of the gravy on the old Churchill Falls deal. And Dave Varley's made the same point. They spread the gravy over a bundle of projects. They bundled all the projects into one big project. They spread the gravy over a bundle so it doesn't look as thick. It's meant to disguise just how much Quebec is getting. The point that he made was striking, that 90% of the benefits financially, even from this MOU, are going to Quebec. A little while ago, Ivan Morgan had a little article in the Shoreline. He writes a column, and he said this was a few months ago: we know it's a bad deal, but we're going to take it anyway because we need the money. A few months ago, I think I would have agreed with him, but I'm not so sure today. I think there's a growing skepticism in the public about the MOU, and the government can't answer this question. If this MOU is as good as you say it is, then why don't you consent to an independent vetting, as recommended by the Muskrat Inquiry? Simply put, I think the government is afraid to have the MOU vetted because by now I think they also know it's a bad deal. So that's my comment on the specifics of the bad deal. It's not a money deal for us. It's a money deal for Quebec, quite simply. That's the way all the economists have put it out. They've approached it from different angles, but the conclusion that they've all come to is that there's no money in it for us. And that's the reason I think we need it vetted, and we need to slow down here.
Okay, very quick question. When's the most recent Doug May video?
We put out a press release this morning, okay, and with a link on the press release to the video. I'm calling in to basically as the town crier to tell people that Doug May's videos are out there. Churchill Falls MOU analysis by Dr. Doug May. You put that in your link thing, and you'll get several videos. There's an intro, then there's some videos in the middle, and then a closing video. And like I say, some people with our committee had technical experts work on this. They're very user-friendly, and Dr. May speaks in ordinary English, and you get graphs and charts, the whole bit and piece. It's easy to understand, and basically he comes to the same conclusion, that there's no money in this for us. But if you don't believe me, just believe Dr. House. Look at what he's saying, and Dr. May, I'm sorry. Look at what he's saying and see for yourself.
I didn't say I didn't believe you or anybody else. I just asked one of the most recent videos.
I'm saying to the general public, because people may look upon me as I have a partisan background, so on and so forth. But on this issue, I'm just part of a citizens committee, and I've heard enough opinions from enough economists who say this thing needs to be double-checked. And I don't think the government intends to do that. In terms of the election, it's not for me to tell people how to vote on these kind of things. A vote's a very personal thing. But the government appears to be going ahead with this thing. I think the PCs have said they will vet it. I'm not exactly sure where the NDP is on it right now. But, my thought to the public is to think twice about this before you your vote come election time.
Yeah, Mr. Wakeham, I can't put, or don't want to put words in the man's mouth. He talked about pausing it and sending it for an independent review. He also talked about a referendum, which I really don't think is a very good idea, to be honest. But an independent review, the Le Bon inquiry recommendation was crystal clear. Any capital expenditure in excess of $50 million deserves and requires independent oversight. My only thought on that, which I've said since the very beginning here, is if we're just going to say to JP Morgan Chase or Goldman Sachs, is this the best deal? There's no answer to that question. So what I think we really need is people proposing an independent review, put forward the terms of reference. Give us an exact list of questions that we'll be asking of Goldman Sachs. I'll just use that as an outfit who would be equipped. And they might not be good because we also have to pick an outfit that doesn't have any conflict of interest and dealings with either side here. So that's what I think we need here, is just someone tell me exactly what we're asking inside an independent review. Because if we're just saying, is this the best deal? That's not even really a question, right?
Well, see, Paddy, from my point of view, I'm no economist. I got a degree in physics, and I never did a single economics course in my whole life. But the one thing that strikes me about every economist that's had a go at this thing is they're saying there's no money in it except for Quebec. Now, any independent panel, the PUB could set up a panel and hire experts from anywhere on the planet and ask the independent panel to say, is this a good deal for Newfoundland? Like, is this a bad deal for Newfoundland? Is this a good deal for Newfoundland? Or is this a deal that, with a few tweaks and amendments, would be good for Newfoundland? And if you have the experts who know about hydroelectric development on your panel, then they can do the sums and come up with the fact that, yes, this is not a bad deal, but you need to fix A, B, and C, or no, this is a disaster and you need to start all over again. I think we need to commit to the notion of vetting, and I'm sure all the smart brains in the province can sort out how we go about vetting it.
Appreciate the time, Alvin. Keep it coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, Bob Sharper's running out in CBS to be a Ward 1 candidate. Then we'll speak with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning to Bob Sharper, running for council out in Conception Bay South. Good morning, Bob. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
Just wanted to introduce myself. As you said, I'm running for Ward 1 here in CBS. Ward 1 runs from the borders with Paradise to the Manuels Bridge and down to the Manuels River. By way of introduction, my name, of course, is Bob Sharp. I've been living here for 30 years. I'm a transplanted townie, and 30 years, just over 30 years ago, myself and my wife Sharon were looking for some place that we just married. We had a young boy, and we wanted to raise our family, and we did. We came here, and we've been here, and we added to that family, and those 2 boys, Jake and Josh, they are living here as well, and starting their own families. I'm a retired CBC employee. I worked in radio technical services. In my career, I would have been the guy on the other side of the glass where you are now. And during that time, I was also a long-time volunteer within the union movement. This summer, while listening to your program, Patty, I heard a lady on there with the talking about the Make Your Mark program, which solicited people to step up and be part of their municipal elections and run as councillor. And I took that to heart, and I looked into it and said, what can I bring to the table? Well, I've got the time, I've got the energy, I've got the efforts there. I've got a background in representing people, and I know how to do that within the union movement. And I can transplant those skill sets to work as a counselor. And so here I am talking to you on the radio, and somewhere which I normally wouldn't do. I listen, but I still don't be a part of it. And I've been walking the streets and knocking on doors for the last month, and I've been listening to the people at CBS and what they have to say.
And what do they have to say?
Well, Patty, one of the things, I've been doing up a report card here, right? One of the things they really talk about is infrastructure and roads. In CBS here is a commute. A lot of people commute back and forth. It's a highly residential area where I am. And those people who work, they mostly work within the city. They go back and forth, Road 60, go back and forth on the main road there. And there's problems within those areas with Route 60, as been said by many, that the Castle Road area, which is managed by the provincial government, is in deplorable condition. I can tell you I've ripped out 2 tires on there in the last 5 years. And that's problematic, Patty. It leads to safety issues. Within our own structure, the CBS controlled area, those roads were once country roads. They were country lanes. We were a small community. But now we're not. We're the second largest community in Newfoundland. We're bigger than Gander. We're bigger than Mount Pearl. We're bigger than Corner Brook. And those roads are no longer viable to have and support the structure and the transportation issues we have. And those things need to be looked into. Other things they're talking about is coastal protection, environmental stewardship. I've got a lot to learn here, right? Yeah. Water supply issues, emergency resilience. People bring up a lot of stuff who are not seniors, who are concerned about our seniors issue, safety for our seniors, recreation for our seniors, and economic support for our seniors. How can we support them? And it's not the seniors bringing it up or interesting enough. It's those people who are familiar with seniors residents. And the list goes on: inclusion, accessibility. I just reading from a list. My report cards that I've been putting, and what I've looked at and what I believe in is evidence-based decision-making process. process and reaching out to those people, the first hands. We used to call them stakeholders in my work life, but those people, the residents of the community, what they've got to say and how I can support them and how I can bring those issues to council. And it's a learning curve for me, but I'm willing to take that on. I've got the time and I got the energy, and I'm willing to do it.
You know, we can all play a role in identifying shortcomings or problems or what have you. What sometimes, this is not directed at you, Bob, but what sometimes is missing in political candidacy is the proposed solution. So if we dig into traffic for a second, I mean, the last time I had to come in and out of Paradise and or CBS was a nightmare because it happened around rush hour in the afternoon, and it was brutal. So how do you deal with something like that? Because you can't influence what time people travel, so it'll all be about the road network itself, whether it be about widening the road. Sometimes there's a geographical restriction there. So do you have any ideas on traffic in and out of Conception Bay South?
Well, one thing that's been suggested is increasing the number of short routes to get you off that road to access the bigger neighborhoods. Some people feel that, and you hear a lot when you talk to people. They say, well, in my development, in my neighborhood, there's only one road coming off Route 60 to get here. If there were other short spurs that let me span off, and then if we could connect those neighborhoods up to other neighborhoods, I could go up on the back road, spur across there, and come down. But that, in many cases, that's not there. So that's a really valid suggestion. Widening the roads, as you said, is another thing. We saw this summer. We had a state of emergency here this summer, when Treon Pond area was evacuated. Friends of mine, family friends of mine were in town. They said, I better get home. I got my dog in my house. I got this. I got my family, got mom, whatever. And they had to try and get home. 3.5 hours later, they made it home. Right? So it is a problem. So it is, and Patty, it's not going to be a short-term solution with that little road coming in here. It's not. It's going to be long-term. It's going to take planning.
Of course it does. And I really appreciate the time. Good luck out there, Bob, as a candidate.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Anytime. Bye-bye. All right, so, of course, the municipalities other than St. John's, tomorrow is the day. When we come back, we're talking about the Canada Post strike. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 5. Mike, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy.
Morning.
Paddy, two things. I've been doing research and that and stuff before the year to get information and everything before this election on the overspending by the Marine Department and government with the ferries, contracts given out without POs, POs issued after the job was completed, which is none of it conforms to policy. It's just ridiculous what is going on there, and you know it's just. But anyway, what happened was that I got my emails blocked, sending and receiving to any government address which has into it gov.nl.ca. So I had to go to the OCIO, who's the IT people, and get a government employee to take out a ticket to investigate it. After 3 months, they found out that it was blocked, that whatever, corrected it. But this is how far this government will go to keep the information getting out to the people. And it's totally ridiculous. And as far as I'm concerned, it should be deemed illegal for me to be blocked from communications with my government member, who was one of them, that was blocked by somebody else, not by the member, but by other people and all government agencies. But, you know, this is all supported by John Hogan and him. And what's going on there is, if all the people got to know the information before this election, they will be appalled at the waste of money by this department deliberately. But anyway, another item is that this fellow that got the Cracker Jack box this morning, his comments there were, anyway, whatever you mind to call it. But one item that he did mention about, that he got a little bit of an idea about, is crony capitalism, which is there's the world elite. Some people who got piles of money think that everybody in the world should be working for these people. and they're the ones who should be running the world. But the thing is that we got it here in Newfoundland, supported by John Hogan and the Liberals, and that's involved in our health care, where we've got a company from England who's got all kinds of scandals behind them, a worldwide company who believe in this crony capitalism, and they're running our health care and costing us at least 3 times the amount of money for our health care of what we should be paying. And it needs to be looked at and addressed, or these people have now taken over our healthcare systems. The people are not unaware of it, the public, but the government is. John Hogan is. And John Hogan knows that we're paying extravagant amounts of money to these people to run our healthcare, which is no need of it. Why are we buying bread from the mainland to serve in our hospitals?
We've had this conversation many, many times, Mike. Is there anything new to add to it today?
Only that the people really, like this fellow brought it a little bit to the light. Now he's to the extreme or whatever. But Newfoundlanders have to look at the Compass Group, the run of our hospitals, the waste of money, paying way too much for our equipment, what we're buying, and everything else. All these scandals, what's it all related to? And the problem that I get is that John Hogan and the Liberals are not doing a thing about it. They're supporting our health services. And then he's on TV talking about, how they're doing is saving money and that and all the rest of it, when all they're doing is save money to give it to these other people to take outside of the province and use for billionaires around the world and over in England. Like, when you look at this whole picture, it's sickening to look at it all and the way these politicians are playing the people for football. It's the Newfoundlanders have got to open their eyes and realize what's going on here and get these people out of government. They've got to go. And the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Anything else, Mike, while we have you?
That's it. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. I mean, the Compass, look, it's a fair conversation. What's also sort of strange about it is that if it's as big a deal as Mike says it is, then one, we've had the government on talk about this. We've actually had operational executives from NL Health Services on talk about nothing but healthcare contracts. We also had the Auditor General report on it. But I haven't heard either of the other parties even breathe that word, Compass. And whether or not they think it's a big deal, whether or not they have a difference of opinion. But, Mike paints it to be an extraordinarily big thing. But I haven't heard any of the politicians on the campaign trail make even one vague reference to it. Let's keep going. Number 2, say good morning to Nicole Boland, running for the NDP in Waterford Valley. Good morning, Nicole. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How's it going?
Not too bad. How about you?
Good. Kind of calm. I got a couple of things on my mind today. First, I wanted to introduce myself. So I ran in the August 2024 by-election. And basically, we've just kind of kept this party going. So I'm a social worker. That's kind of how I got involved. I felt like government wasn't responding to communities and people with the policy work that we needed to see. And I felt like if we wanted those changes, then we had to go get them because it wasn't being passed down from the top. So in the past year since the by-election, I went back to school. I did a full-time master's of social work degree. We've been on doors now for the past 14 months. It's been a wild ride. So just kind of wanted to reintroduce myself, be like, hi, I'm Nicole, your NDP candidate for Waterford Valley, and just then I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Student Day of Action as well.
Sure. But when you talk about policy not meeting the needs on the ground, you want to dig into a couple of specifics?
Oh, yeah. So my big one, and we spoke about this a year ago, was there's a mental health subsidy that one of the criteria is for housing, and one of the criteria is that a person needs to live alone in order to avail of the subsidy. So automatically that excluded single mothers or single fathers with their children. And when we went to the minister level looking for help or guidance or changing this policy, we were told that if they opened it to single parents, the floodgates would open and it wouldn't be able to keep up. But then fundamentally on the back end of that, emergency shelter costs have gone through the absolute roof, and they are one of the most expensive ways to deal with homelessness. So the floodgates seem to be open in either way.
We're the only province in the country that deals with the shelter issue the way we do. I haven't heard a good argument as to why we do what we do here, but anyway, that's a good specific to dig into. You wanted to talk about the Student Day of Action. Tell us more about that and your position on it.
Yeah, so like I said, I just went back. I did a master's degree, and tuition since 2022, it's just about doubled. And everyone's feeling the crunch because it also comes along with a housing crisis, with cost of living going up, with affordability being a lot more unattainable for a lot of people. So Student Day of Action is a rally to kind of bring these issues to light. It starts today at 12 o'clock at the Clock Tower. And the things that Muncie was trying to highlight is the tuition freeze, ending unpaid work terms, focusing housing as a human right, and then focusing food as being a necessary feature of survival because we're seeing so much food insecurity.
They're all very, very real. Insofar as tuition goes, I mean, that's a big conversation. I personally think that it was a bit of a self-inflicted wound to not have a predictable, modest increase in tuition over the years, as opposed to what we dealt with was an increase in student fees. I get a tax break on my tuition, but not on a student fee. But that's what we saw, which I never could wrap my mind around as being a good thing, because if I'm the parent or the student and I'm writing a check, the breakdown insofar as where I get a tax credit, that's important to me. But we just turn a blind eye to it, and we treated the tuition free as sacrosanct, a sacred cow, and look where we are. So that one is strange. Same thing with campus renewal fees. They weren't all used to renew the campus. So there's just so much inside that world. And just a couple of back and forths here on the pay for work terms. We also need, I think, a little bit more of a careful breakdown. What constitutes training versus what constitutes work? Because there's lots of arenas in this world where you can indeed be in uniform at the office, but it is strictly and absolutely education and training versus actually doing the work. Like if I'm replacing someone who's a paid employee by actually doing their work versus learning from them doing their work, I think we need to be a bit more careful in breaking that down. What do you think?
I think for sure, but also my background is in nonprofits, right? So when you're doing nonprofit work terms, the nonprofits, they almost depend on these students. And if you don't get the students, it does really impact access to services and what the nonprofit can do. And then it's a double-edged sword, right? Because not only are students doing unpaid work terms, they're still paying tuition, and now they're paying rising tuition. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of our healthcare and our helping services are kind of built on the backs of this unpaid labor. And like I said, when you factor in rent, groceries, everything else, students are being squeezed in a way that I don't know if we've really seen before, and I think that's really shown too in how enrollment numbers have been dropping.
Yeah. I suppose there's a few contributing factors to enrollment numbers. No question tuition plays a role. Of course it does. Then, if we're being realistic about government funding to universities and the level of funding here and the tuition costs elsewhere, then I think there's a healthy conversation to be had. I think also, I'll just bounce this off you, enrollment numbers, I think, also reflect the median age of the population. So, if my children, of which I had 2, and before me I'm one of 5, things are changing. I mean, the number of people even of post-secondary age and the choosing to go into post-secondary education, those things are changing. And does tuition have an impact on that? Of course it does. Money makes the world go around and influences a lot of decisions. So I think there's a bunch of contributing factors there. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. And when I finished my Bachelor of Social Work in 2021, I did toy with the idea of applying to med school. But then I was thinking that between all the fees and the registration to write the MCAT and this, that, the other thing, and say you would want to do some kind of tutoring, I was like, I'm going to invest a couple $1,000 into even prepping for the MCAT. Don't know if I'm going to get in. And then if I get in, what kind of student debt am I looking at? And that was kind of my deciding feature was I know I want to help people. I love working with people. And that's why I did continue with social work. And then I went back and did the master's program. Might be a PhD at some point in time. But once again, it does come back to the infrastructure of the university. Is one giving the quality of education in a quality space? And how much is that going to cost?
I mean, the competitive nature of getting into one's med schools, well, we've heard different parties talk about another expansion at the school, of which we actually have control over 65 of 80 seats for people from this province. Should that be expanded? I would suggest yes. It's remarkable in a country where every single province and all the territories talk about the lack of family doctors. And, there was even conversation a few years ago about adding a year of residency to family doctors, which thankfully did not happen. And all the while, there's only 17 medical schools in Canada. I don't know why we're not all collectively, provincially talking about expanding medical schools. It seems like if we have a dearth of supply, maybe we just add to the supply chain, more seats.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, too, talking about how to support students in it, right? Because if you're paying rent, especially too, because you got to get a degree before you can apply to med school. So you might have debt from that original degree. You're still paying all the bills. You're like, should I go out and get a job now to start paying down this debt and pay the bills, or do I want to commit and almost double down and take this risk on applying to med school and then carrying whatever debt I accrue that way for the next 10 years, right? So it's a lot of things I think that go into it, especially with the social kind of landscape we're living in.
I appreciate the time, Nicole. Good luck.
One other thing, Patty.
Sure.
So special ballots for the provincial elections. If you want to vote before the advance poll, you can do it now at the returning offices. There's various ones across the district. For Waterford Valley, it's 702 Water Street. But if you want to do the advance polls, it's going to be October 7th at St. Mary's Church. And then, of course, we got E-Day on October 14th. And we'll be doing rides to and from the polls on all of these days. And if you need anything, reach out to us. And I can leave my email with your team.
Sure. You can give it out quickly if you'd like.
Yeah, so it's Nicole Boland at nlndp.ca.
Appreciate your time. Good luck, Nicole.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, Nicole Boland, running for the NDP, Waterford Valley. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to Leela, who's a student at Memorial University. Good morning, Leela. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
I'm okay. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I just wanted to call in because I'm a student at Memorial, and I don't know if you've seen, but there is this open letter that has been going around the university community, and it's basically talking about how there are 3 inspiring, brave Newfoundlanders that have joined the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and they're all members of the university community as well. 2 of them are alumni, and one of them is a current master's student. And I'm just so inspired by their bravery and just their commitment and passion towards this humanitarian cause. And I wanted to just talk to you about that and let people know that there is this open letter that's been going around, and there's also this click to email campaign that is hopefully encouraging people to reach out to their MPs, to talk to other folks about how we can support our folks on the boat, and also how we can work towards ending the genocide in Gaza and, enforcing a 2-way arms embargo. And, yeah.
Okay, a lot to this. So, interesting obviously, it's a very complicated world. I read something very quickly that I actually set aside for more in-depth reading this afternoon about documentation about who is financially and logistically supporting the flotilla, which, I know there's lots of contributing factors, but specific reference to Hamas in there, which I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what the implications of that are. Also, we know last week that it was widely reported that Israeli drones were dropping like flashbangs right on these boats, which are just carrying humanitarian aid. I'll have people push back and say, they're sneaking in arms for Hamas. No, that's not what was on the flotilla boats at all. It was straight up humanitarian aid, and they were getting flashbangs and other objects dropped right on the boats, which is, I don't know, is evil the right word?
I think I know what documents you're talking about, and so there is this concerted effort to delegitimize the flotilla, either the Freedom Flotilla Coalition or 1,000 Madeleines or Global Samud, and these are false. There is no funding from Hamas or funding towards Hamas. These are all international coalitions between volunteers, medics, journalists, politicians, celebrities who all want to just bring humanitarian aid to Gaza and also to break the illegal ongoing siege on Gaza. I don't know if you know, but Gaza's been under an illegal blockade and siege for 17 years. And so these are just people who are committed to the cause, who are passionate about liberating Palestine, about, ending this genocide and bringing much-needed humanitarian aid. So there is no connection to Hamas. And I feel that I worry about that sort of rhetoric because it seems like it is just Israeli propaganda to justify, attacks on the ship. They have been attempting to attack them or to intimidate them. And by stirring up this sort of conspiracy, it is legitimizing their, illegal actions against all of these civilians who are just trying to literally bring much-needed aid to a starving population undergoing a man-made famine and undergoing a genocide.
Yeah, that's certainly not my intention. So, inside that whole conversation here, and we can dig into specifics and, the move further into Gaza City, how many people have been displaced, how many people have been killed. And, if anyone wants to start the conversation with October 7th, you're probably missing a few decades worth of impact in that region. But what's striking is that so many, if we talk about the President of the United States, just heard what Netanyahu had to say at the United Nations, is outrageous. But we're talking about it now like it's some sort of real estate transaction. Talk about glossing over the impact on human beings, women and children. Yes, we could talk about Hamas as a terrorist organization, and they are. But now we're just hearing things that basically talking about it just being a real estate opportunity. It's maddening.
Well, yes, and the situation that's happening in Palestine and in Gaza, it has been treated as a real estate opportunity for decades since, the Balfour Declaration, since the Nakba in 1948. This is about legitimizing taking the land, a Zionist expansion of settlements. And, I just really, really also just want to bring this back to, these people are trying to break the siege, to break the blockade that has been imposed illegally by, Israeli settlers, by the Israeli state on Gaza, restricting the distribution and the distribution of aid, the entry of humanitarian, workers. I really want to focus on that.
And fair enough, it's your dime.
Yeah. So if you've been keeping track of just, the dialogue that's surrounding the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, the 3 brave Newfoundlanders that are on there, there are so many things that I really want to just urge people to do. Read the open letter, to also just look on the social medias of Palestine Action YYT and also Canada Vote to Gaza on the Instagram and on Facebook. There is a click to email campaign. Please, please, I urge you to sign up for it. It takes less than 2 minutes. It's just a very simple form. It will reach out to Mark Carney, to Anita Anand, to whoever your MP is, and to also the Premier and the Ambassador of Canada to Israel. If you just sign this really quick click to email, it's just urging all of these political parties to ensure the safety of these Newfoundlanders who are on the boat, to also ensure the safety of everyone who is part of these flotillas. Canada has an obligation, a moral obligation, to support, humanitarian aid that is going to Gaza, to support our citizens that are also on this mission towards Gaza. And, just also, it's really important that we do our own part wherever we can. Not everyone can go in a flotilla. Not everyone can, put their boots on the ground. But it is so simple and it is so easy to just still a simple click to email, or to write an email to your own MP, or to call your MP, just really, really urge and stress just the urgency of the situation. There is a documented famine, there's a documented genocide that is happening in Gaza, and we should all try to act in whatever little way that we can towards breaking this genocide, towards ending this famine.
I appreciate your time, Leila. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I could just have one more moment.
Very quickly, I have to go.
Oh, okay.
Just very quickly.
Thank you.
I'll let you wrap it up because I'm late for the news.
Oh, sorry. So where I'm a student, there's still a divestment campaign happening on campus. Please reach out to the president of Memorial to urge them to stop investing $16 million in a genocide. And thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye. And I see someone ask me this question. I mean, look, if a caller wants to bring up a certain topic, that's up to the caller, right? And I've been asked, what about the genocide or the concept of genocide of Christians in Nigeria? Also bad. Let's take a break.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go line number 6. Charlie, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning.
You must be happy with your Montreal Canadiens this year.
So far, so good. I mean, I don't put much stock in the preseason, but they looked pretty good last night.
Yeah, that game against the Leafs. Can't wait.
Yeah, let's go. I'm considering whether or not going to be able to make a trip up to Montreal this year to catch a couple of games, but they got a young team with some pretty outstanding young talent, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think they look great. Patty, a couple of things before I get to the main thing. Great conversation with that young lady. I'll refer to that in a minute. The postal thing, I'm glad the government has taken action here. There's definitely a reset needed. This organization can't be subsidized from taxpayers to that degree year after year, and that business is not coming back. So they had to make adjustments, and I'm glad somebody finally had the guts to do it,
Yeah, and some of the recommendations, look, if I'm a unionized employee and it jeopardizes some of my status and my pay and my hours, I get why they're concerned. But some of these things, like, for instance, when they first talked about community mailboxes and losing the door-to-door delivery, people were outraged. But the fact of the matter is, somewhere around 2/3 or more of Canadians don't have home delivery. Now, I get it. If I live in rural and I have to drive a significant amount of time and distance to collect my mail, then I get it. But for me, it's down the street. And for most Canadians, it's down the street. So that stuff, I mean, I think it's probably coming sooner than later. And you're right. With a cumulative loss of $5 billion since 2018, it's unmanageable, unsustainable. We can say the managers, they blew it with the budget and the revenue side that was coming in. Fair enough. But we are where we are. So where to next is the big question.
And a lot of the labor, I feel, is unskilled and overpaid, and that needs to be corrected as well. Patty, the pharmacare thing, you were saying you didn't know of any reason the government hasn't signed on to the Newfoundland government. What, have they said anything about that at all?
No, not that I know of. And that's why I asked the question out loud is, me and you and Dave and people listening to this program, we're already paying a federal tax dollar. So I'm already contributing to the program. Now, I wouldn't, I don't need to avail of either contraceptives or diabetes medications or supplies, but people do. So I'm already paying for it. I just wonder why we haven't signed on to it formally. That's all.
Yeah, I think it should be a major issue. Each candidate should have to say something on that before this election, don't you think?
I would think so, and why not? It's a pretty fundamental question. We were first out of the gate to sign on to the school lunch program, which they actually talk about expanding. How that's going to work, don't know. We were one of the first to sign on to $10 a day daycare, which I think is a great idea. I don't have any kids that need daycare, but I think fundamentally that makes a lot of sense. And pharmacare, I just haven't heard anyone say why we haven't signed on. If there's ongoing negotiations that are very specific, detail-oriented, fair enough, but what are the details?
Okay. Patty, that conversation you had with that young lady, I thought she was very well informed. I see this so-called peace thing as basically a surrender, a capitulation. I've been through a few of these over the years, especially the one in the 90s with Clinton, then when they shook hands on that, right? But if anybody examined that closely, that Oslo agreement, it was a sellout of the Palestinians, and if Arafat had gone through with it, which I'm glad for the sake of the Palestinians he didn't, he would have been assassinated by his own people. It was a ridiculous deal. If anybody thinks that Israel is going to abandon settlements in the West Bank, which to me would be a key deal for any lasting peace, they're not going to do that. In fact, they're continuing to build them. It's like Swiss cheese. They're as far as establishing any contiguity in having a Palestinian state. Are they going to make Gaza an open-air prison, which they had before, which is one of the reasons that Hamas came on the scene and did what they did? And
I don't know.
To look at the overall thing, it's just no way the Israeli right-wing government, other than getting a ceasefire and getting the hostages back, they're not to be trusted with what they promise as well. Are they going to rebuild about that? So you can go on and on. This is not a peace deal at all. This is just a sham.
Well, until there's a ceasefire and a return of hostages, nothing's going to change. And don't take it from Charlie about West Bank settlements. They're actually talking about expanding settlements in the West Bank. Yes. So, and that's not from me, that's from Netanyahu. It's interesting you mentioned the Oslo Accords. They're like 30 years old, or that is 30 years old at this moment in time. And it was signed by Rabin and Arafat, as you mentioned, and here's Netanyahu on the scene, and there's plenty of conversation about the role that Benjamin Netanyahu played in the assassination of Rabin. And I don't mean directly, you put the gun in someone's hand, but the political rhetoric of the day, if people think back, it was very real. There's moving film of Mr. Netanyahu walking in front of a casket of Rabin a couple of days before he was killed. So it's just wild how the world works and unfolds very quickly. And even things like the Abraham Accords, that basically said that there would be no opportunity for the Palestinians to have a veto or a say in any negotiated peace. I mean, don't take it from me, take it from the actual document itself. Anything else this morning, Charlie?
Yeah, very, very quickly. I don't know if you saw the address given by Hegseth and Trump. It was all arranged for Trump, of course, not Hegseth. I don't know if you watched that, but can you imagine trying to do deals with somebody who was as unbalanced as that guy is? I mean, he basically got up and said he declared war on his own people. They're going to use troops on American soil against his opponents. And Hegseth basically got up and said that the military needs to smarten up in terms of transgender and all that stuff, and take off weight. He apparently works out a lot, but his mind certainly doesn't get a workout. It was so out to lunch and so ridiculous that those two people would get up and give a pep talk to those people, so-called pep talk. They were disgusted. You could tell the whole way, But anyway,
the enemy within, using American cities as training grounds. Oh boy, pretty wild stuff. Now, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump, but when we talk about weight and what have you, I mean, he's not an active member of the services, so we'll put that out there. And plus, the whole concept about woke and all this and that. I mean, the culture wars are so tedious and dominate so much political commentary and so much political discourse. I just don't get it. It's exhausting and it's accomplishing little to nothing. Very quickly, you're being challenged by a listener, and it kind of just went right by me, is when you refer to Canada Post workers as unskilled. Who's unskilled? And how come you say that? And why do you think they're getting paid too much?
Okay, the unskilled workers, if you look at the training that's put into letter carriers and so on, truckers, and their wages have always been way above the national average. And unskilled workers, I would challenge somebody to tell me how they're skilled except for the top jobs, perhaps. But anyway, we'll leave it at that, I guess.
Appreciate the time, Charlie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I'll take a break on time. Lindsay, stay right there to talk about Canada Post. Don't go away. And welcome back. Let's go line number 4. Lindsay, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy. It's pretty good morning and stuff like that.
Not bad.
Yeah, okay. Now, what I want to talk about is the postal strike. Okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, I don't blame the people that delivers the mail, the people that picks up the mail at the postal station and delivers it to community mailboxes, because they just doing their job and they got to get paid. They got, obligation bills and stuff like that meant to be paid for. But when they're out on a strike, they don't get any pay except some pay from the union or strike pay, whatever you want to call it. Now, they don't get any of that stuff. Now, anyhow, like when they had the last strike, I think it was last winter, something like that, or early last spring.
Yeah, December,
Yeah, the government legislated everybody back to work, and everybody went back to work. And it hasn't been perfect, but everybody's been getting the mail since then. But now, like the government came out with this new idea to overhaul the post office, stuff like that. No more door-to-door deliveries, that kind of stuff. But that's just an excuse, I think, that the union, the people that runs the post office as much as the government does, just an excuse they use to call another strike, because they couldn't until the government came up with something like that. So,
no. I mean, they haven't signed a contract. There's no contract.
In the union and the government, they're working neck and neck or hand in hand with each other.
I don't know what that means, but they don't have a contract, which is pretty much why they're striking. They were given a bump in pay, but that, of course, was just to temporarily give them a chance to keep negotiating with the corporation, but they're getting nowhere, which is why they find themselves on strike. And just for clarification, did you say that the striking postal workers don't get strike pay?
They do get strike pay.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, they do, but not so much as the regular pay. Like, goes on. They get all kinds of benefits. They get fuel for the vehicles for delivering the mail, and they get their company pensions and pay and stuff like that. They get all those things and the wages. But,
strike pay is $281 a week.
What the union pays them is nothing like that,
Well, no, it never is. Strike pay, I think, is $281 a week.
Yeah, something like that, and that's far less than the minimum wage.
It is.
Yeah. So anyhow, like so far as I'm concerned, like this strike shouldn't be on at all. Now it's just an excuse that the union used to call an strike and screw up people's mail and stuff like that. Because right now people got bills to get. That's going to be all screwed up. They got other things to put in the mail. I mean, this thing could last until Christmas time or more.
No, it won't. I mean, I think the last strike lasted 32 days, I'm pretty sure is the number. And it won't drag on that long this time. I mean, the government has been pretty quick to legislate people back to work. They did it with the rail workers, they did it with the port workers, they threatened to do it with the Air Canada flight attendants, even though they said, go to blazes, we're not going to pay any attention to you. And they've done it with Canada Post already, and they're going to do it again eventually. There's no question in my mind.
It's putting people on edge, as far as I'm concerned right now. People don't know what's going on. Like it's hard to figure out. It's a half a dozen one and six of the other.
Sure. I don't know how long this is going to drag, but it has obvious implications. I mean, you hear from small and medium-sized business owners who really rely on Canada Post, especially when we're talking getting their product or their service to the quote-unquote last mile where nobody services, not the private sector companies in the courier business. So Canada Post is a bit more complicated than people give it credit for, but I would imagine being legislated back to work is not too far down the road, I don't think.
Well, anyhow, to me, it's, I find it to be awful confusing. Like, in small towns like this, like around there, where everybody almost know everybody, we know the people who delivers the mail, and these people who delivers the mail when they're only getting strike pay, well, I mean, like I just said, they got bills to pay and stuff like that, and families to raise. Well, they're beginning to hurt a lot.
Sure.
Because they're not getting a regular paycheck.
Well, that's what happens when people strike. They weigh the ups and downs, the pros and the cons, and certainly some of that is about pay. And, of course, that's a short-term issue when we're talking about strike. I would imagine the CUP W leadership is talking about the long-term implications of benefits, including rate of pay. Anything else while we have you this morning, Lindsay?
Well, there's one other thing, like the war over there in Palestine with Gaza. I find that to be genocide, like a good many more people are calling it. You see innocent women and children brought out in baby bags and put in their mother's arms and stuff like that. It's too much. It's what I would call genocide. South Africa has caught it.
Rwanda.
Spain has caught it. Ireland has caught it. Norway caught it. And now a lot of other countries in the UN is calling it.
Well,
so,
the countries are actually calling for a independent Palestinian state. Look, I mean,
yes, it should be, and Israel keep their nose out of it, because it's none of their business what kind of government another country or another state has.
Well, in some form it is, though. It depends on the impact that it has directly on Israeli safety. But, of course, that gets conflated and a variety of other adjectives I could add. So, fair enough. I mean, the United Nations has made a declaration on it. We can call it ethnic cleansing. You can call it genocide. People could pick their own word here. And I'm no question going to be in trouble with some people. But, I mean, it's all you can do when you sit in this chair. Same thing as Amnesty International. We do know that the documented use of food and humanitarian aid as being weaponized. And no matter who you are or what side of this conflict that you're on, we know that to be agreed upon by the modern world as a war crime. I mean, it's as simple as that. Lindsay, I got to get to the news, but I appreciate your time.
Okay, then.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Very quickly, this is an extremely troubling note. So, Alex King, if you're listening, the family's worried about you. He's been missing from Airport High since Saturday. So, I've heard from his dad, and so the plea is just to come home. Or at least let your family know if you're okay. So if you are Alex King, or you know Alex King, can you please relay this message to him? The family wants to hear from you. Okay, Alex? So just please do that. At least that very limited amount of just simply telling your family that you're doing okay. So put that out there. Also, if you are concerned, so there was a portal that had closed about seeing whether or not your vote had been received and that type of stuff. There's a ballot status website, and it's an easy one to do. If you go to stjohns.ca/vote, you can get the information there as to whether or not your ballot is in hand. And there's plenty of concerns about, the mail interruption, what that means for mail-in ballots, just like what we're talking about here on this program. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, there's another candidate running for a council at-large position here in the city. PJ wants to chime in again about the MOU. John wants to talk about Gull and whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 7. John, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm okay, John. How about you?
Oh, not bad. No, I just wanted to speak about the Gull Island project that the Liberal government is proposing. Here we are, Newfoundland and Labrador, one of the provinces paying the highest electricity rate in the province, or even in Canada, if you want to look at.
We're not.
In Quebec, you're paying a little over 7 cents per kilowatt. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, we're paying over 15 cents a kilowatt. And now they've got a big negotiation going on with Quebec for this power rate here, and we've got not Gull Island, but we got Churchill Falls on the go. We got Muskrat Falls on the go. Now we're in the verge of a major project in the Gull Island, and there's no. To me, there's no negotiation for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to have a better rate for electricity. I mean, why should we pay so much money for electricity when all these mega projects is on our land? It's in the province here, Newfoundland and Labrador, and we got, even like I said, in St. John's. In St. John's, I got a daughter, my granddaughter that lives out there, and they're paying up to $500 a month for electricity, which is utterly ridiculous. I think there's something these Liberal governments out to lunch for. They got to come up with a new project. MOU.
What's the point you're making regarding how much we pay for electricity versus how much they pay in Quebec?
Quebec's paying over 7 cents, a little over 7. I think 7.8. Don't around that area.
Yeah, it's 8 cents. That's 15.
Right. We're paying double.
I understand that, but how does that relate to the Upper Churchill MOU? That's all I'm asking.
Well, how that relates to the government of Newfoundland and Labrador should be negotiating a better rate for us here in Newfoundland and Labrador than Quebec. I mean, Quebec's going to take over all this power. We're not even going to have none of it. And why shouldn't they negotiate a better rate for us? The Liberal government is just putting out in the back burner again. And they're going to negotiate this mega project going on for the next 50 years or so. I mean, we're left out in the cold again.
Yeah, look, I understand the concern with how much we pay because I'm a ratepayer, but I don't know how we get Quebec to chip in on our electricity rate as opposed to if this becomes a contract or a number of contracts to use some of that money to help control my rates, because I don't know why Quebec would be interested in subsidizing my power bill directly.
Well, they shouldn't. Well, that's the negotiation part of it. I mean, it's not the Quebec to do a better rate for Newfoundland and Labrador, but this should be in a negotiation for saying, yeah, okay, if you want our power, we want power too. We want power for Newfoundland and Labrador here, and we want a better rate. But it's not like I said, it's not the Quebec government. It's the Liberal government here in Newfoundland and Labrador that's doing this to us. I mean, they should be negotiating and saying, yeah, we're going to give you guys a better rate. But the Quebec is paying a little bit over 7 cents a kilowatt, and it's all coming out of Labrador, Newfoundland, Labrador. Okay, this is our province. They should be negotiating a better rate for us.
Fair enough. I think the only way we can deal with our own rates is with what we're currently seeing unfold with what people call rate mitigation, even though that's a funny term to add to it. But I mean, Quebec's not going to help me with my power bill. The provincial government, whether it be taking HST off electricity for residential users, what have you, or the provincial portion of the HST off, is one thing. And controlling the rates at Muskrat, like, we don't even know what that's going to look like after 2030 when this few $1 billion is exhausted. So, fair enough. I'm also concerned with my power bill. Of course I am.
Of course you are, and so is the rest of the province. But the thing is that this Liberal government now should be negotiating with the Quebec and saying, look, we need a better rate for our province, and by saying that, all of Newfoundland and Labrador should be paying less for electricity than we're doing now.
Appreciate the time, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. I just keep going. We'll say good morning to a candidate running up Mount Moriah. That's Dave Butt. Morning, Dave. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How are you?
Very well. How about you?
Not too bad, sir. Another nice day on the West Coast.
It was beautiful here this morning when I got to work, and now it's looking pretty gray, and it feels like it's going to rain, but c'est la vie. Dave, what's going on in Mount Moriah that makes you want to be a candidate?
Well, this is my fourth time running for re-election, and I feels like I want to run again, and a lot of people want me to run because there's lots of concerns in the town of Mount Moriah.
Let's talk about a couple. Pick one to start with.
Well, regards of new water and sewer and infrastructure, and trying to get more money to upgrade our water services than everything else, because we're a small community of 700 people, and you knows what it is now with not very many households there, and the tax base and everything else. Everything is so expensive now to run, and we got a lot of seniors in that there with like probably just one income OAS and that, and everything is getting more expensive, and it's harder for them to run. Keep everything up, eh?
I get it. So in a pretty small community, your cost sharing on capital infrastructure would be 10%, right?
No, it's gone up higher than that now.
Oh, is it? What is it, Dave?
On pavement, I think it's 50-50, and I think on water and sewer, It's not. It's not 70%.
Oh, is it? Because then something has changed in the recent past. And because I was talking about water, sewer, roads are a different kettle of fish. But I thought things like water, sewer upgrades were still on the 90-10, 90 being the province. But you know more than me. You're living out there.
Yeah, but no, but like I say, everything is changing all the time, eh?
Absolutely, it is. So, how many times have you been successful in 4 times running? Or I guess you can't count this one because you haven't no results yet.
Well, I've been successful every time.
Oh, good man.
No, because what it is, usually the majority the vote wins. But like I say, I goes back and I fight for the rights of the people. I know I only got one say and one vote, but if I think there's anything wrong, I will go back and fight and try to get it fixed up.
Like you would. How many people in Mount Moriah these days, Dave?
I say it's somewhere around 750, 800 people.
Okay, very good. So you talked about cost sharing in water and sewer and what have you. What else would you like to highlight here this morning?
It's getting expensive, like for firemen's gear and stuff like that, and trying to get volunteers and that, because we got to get all new equipment and everything, and it's cashiered, and it costs a lot of money for the council to come up with.
I wonder what the future of the strength of numbers at volunteer fire halls is going to look like into the future. And fingers crossed it continues to be as solid as it is today. Maybe, just maybe, knowing that the province is now open to things like compensation for extraordinary circumstances like the wildfire season we just went through, maybe that'll be encouraging for more people to consider serving their community through being a volunteer firefighter. And good on everyone who does.
Well, I've been a volunteer fireman for about 30 years. Okay. Altogether, with Cubs and buy shoots and everything, I got about 51 years in volunteer.
Good for you, Dave. That's a lot of service to put into a community as a volunteer firefighter and other organizations. Anything else you want to say, Dave, here this morning?
Well, like I say, a lot of people wanted me to run for election again, and I'm running for the election, and I'm there for the common man and to vote for the people.
Good on you. I appreciate your time this morning. I wish you good luck.
And thank you very much, sir, and you have a good day.
The same to you, Dave.
And I'd like to see all the people of Mount Moriah that can get out and vote.
Absolutely. I'm all about the civic duty, I'll call it, as in voting. Dave, appreciate your time, sir. Best of luck.
Thank you very much, sir, and you have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, final break of the morning. When we come back, PJ's in the queue to talk the MOU. Councillor running for the council at-large position here in the city of St. John's. About to talk about crime. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to a candidate running for an at-large position here in the city of St. John's. That's Wallace Ryan. Wallace, you're on the air. When I get the pushback, when I say, how would we negotiate our own provincial hydro rates or electricity rates with the province of Quebec? It's not to say I wouldn't like to pay less money, because I would. It's just that how do you enter into a realistic negotiation with another province, another utility like Hydro-Quebec, and a starting point to be, hey, you guys pay on the average 8 cents, we pay around 14.25 cents per kilowatt hour. Because that's sort of our own problem. We brought that to the dance. It really has nothing to do with Hydro-Quebec or the province of Quebec. So that's the only point I'm making. Not that I would like to pay more, because I prefer to pay less. Let's go to line number 5, see if we have a better line with Wallace. Good morning, Wallace. Ryan, you're on the air.
Yes, how are you doing there today, Paddy?
Not bad at all. How about you?
Am I coming in loud and clear for you?
Much better. Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, after a couple of weeks of campaigning on the street, literally on my e-bike, just going from person to person on the street, I've heard a lot from the people of St. John's, and mostly it has been about crime. And of course, a lot of people have been talking about the interview the other day on one of the other radio stations about the City of St. John's Act, and talking to a former Crown prosecutor there, and how he was talking about the City of St. John's Act, and how a lot of the things we need to fight the crack houses, to fight the crack dealers and all that, is already there. It's just we need the political will to use some of these bylaws. I mean, there's so many things from basically unfit housing. And when I went through it myself, it was a myriad of solutions there. Basically, you can withdrawing permits, the conditions of the place. When I looked at it, it was just like, why hasn't anyone done this so far? And I'm not surprised. It's because we're dealing with the status quo, unfortunately, when it comes to City Hall. Is a lot of times it's the same old, and no one wants to rock the boat. No one wants to get anyone angry. But sometimes you have to get angry to help the people. What I've heard on the street has just been shocking. As a matter of fact, I heard here in the Rollins Cross area, down on Carew Street there last weekend, there were these two women brutally beaten by their pimp. And they were just whisked off by the police to a local shelter. Nothing ever appeared on the news and all that. But you can be guaranteed that everyone in the neighborhood is talking about it, and they don't feel safe. And once again, too, there's one topic that hasn't been raised by a lot of people too has been the problem with the needles, with the syringes that are all over downtown St. John's. Myself, my campaign vehicle, my e-bike, was laid up for a day because I got a syringe in the back tire. I mean, it just absolutely shocked me. Not only that, but when I went down to have it repaired, the young fellow who repaired it for me, he told me a story about how he was stabbed by a needle getting into a cab about a year ago, and he spent an entire year going through all kinds of tests. He said it was on his mind constantly. And finally, things worked out in the end. But that was a whole year that he was on tenterhooks, and I just don't think that's right. And it's funny too how I've noticed too how lately suddenly a lot of the other candidates, provincial and municipal, are suddenly talking about crime. And I mean, I have been talking about crime since the very first thing I posted on my page, which was one of my posters that just says "Got crime?" ? Which we got crime. Do we ever have crime, Patty? And what we need is someone there who is not afraid to stand up for the people of St. John's and say enough is enough.
Yeah, some of what we were discussing inside the St. John's Act was the control and the authority that the city has to deal directly with houses that are being used for whether it be drugs or prostitution or whatever the case may be. If someone gets a beating out in the street, that of course is straight up law enforcement. But when we know that we have these trap houses, as people refer to them, the city can act. And why they don't, I have no earthly idea, but it's a question that we will certainly put to all of the candidates, including those who are running for mayor. Ivy Hanley was on the show talking about her take on it. When she heard Mike Murray, she read the act, sections 375 through 385. And if I get a chance to speak with Danny Breen or any other of the incumbents, we're happy to ask them too, because if we have authority, let's use it.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, the local community here around Rollins Cross, we've banded together, and basically we phone the police whenever we see anything going down. And I encourage this for any neighborhood going through this, is we are on the phone constantly with the police. We already got 3 crack dealers thrown out of a local social agency here, housing, and we had a crack house here, actually on Military Road. Can you imagine that, on Military Road? And we, through pressure on the landlord and everything, we had the people tossed out of that. And so basically there is stuff that you as a community can do too, besides pressuring the people who are in power, which you should continue to do. But I mean, unfortunately we're having to take matters into our own hands, and that is just not fair. So I mean, if people want to, one of my slogans is that I'm a fighter. I'm not a bystander. If there's something to be said, something to be done, I will be there. As a matter of fact, I've promised people a 24-hour return phone call policy for one thing, because I've had people who say, they phone and they never get a call back. I will call you back within 24 hours, and if it's a situation that you want me there on the ground to see for my own eyes, I'll be on my e-bike and I'll zip up to your house. I'll have a cup of tea. I'll chat with your neighbors, because to be quite honest, you get more of the truth, more of the real issue when you talk to the people on the street, the people who are on the front lines, rather than listening to other politicians, bureaucrats, that sort of thing. I'm here because, I'm running because I love St. John's. St. John's has done everything for me. St. John's is where I was raised and lived my life out. It's where I fell in love, had a family, and I love St. John's. That's probably one of my strongest points, is that I love this city, and I will fight for it tooth and nail. I
appreciate your time. I wish you good luck, Wallace.
Thank you very much, Betty, and keep on keeping on. You're doing a great service for us.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. It's Wallace Ryan, running at large here in town. Line 1, PJ, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Patty. Wanted to talk quickly on the MOU because the election's coming up in less than 2 weeks. The two aspects, the nation-building project and also a game that I discovered on the Hydro-Quebec's website that people might want to pursue. So on the nation-building project, in May, Quebec went to the federal government looking for $3 billion. This is documented online. And I found it interesting. Newfoundland was nowhere near to be seen at that negotiation or that request. They just simply were not part of that. Quebec went alone. And what's interesting, what came out of that is that project was for electrical transmission from Quebec to what they call Newfoundland Labrador. So what come out of it, the Fed said you have to have at least four provinces involved in these nation-building projects for it to qualify. And so why is it that Newfoundland is not speaking to how they're going to participate in this, how much money they're asking for, et cetera? It just seems to be a point that shows Quebec being, I want to say, somewhat exploitive at this MOU already and going to the feds for money to build transmission to their benefit so that they can, sell power to Ontario, New Brunswick, Quebec, of course, and even to PEI. So it seems Newfoundland needs to come a bit more up to speed on what is it they're looking for on this. Because it seems to be not notified by people right now.
It's a good question. I don't think Quebec went to the federal government insofar as qualifying for nation-building project funding. They're just quite simply trying to get federal government money to build transmission lines, and good for them, I'd say. That changes everything if we have federal involvement with the Upper Churchill MOU. Insofar as nation-building project, don't take it from me. Take it from the then Harper Conservatives and the Trudeau Liberals. They thought it was a nation-building project. How do I know? Because that's what they said when they gave the federal loan guarantees. And that was a lot about trying to get Nova Scotia off coke and coal-fired electricity. So they've already deemed it to be that. So how all of a sudden it isn't that? I have no idea.
Well, I'm just pointing out it seems to be a void there. Newfoundland doesn't seem to be able to speak to what they're looking for on that Gull Island nation-building project, because that was the meeting in May. It had to do with nation-building projects. Just going to move on to a game that's on the Hydro-Quebec website.
PJ, just because of the time, I mean, it's just about 12 o'clock. We don't allow twice-a-week callers, but I would let you finish your thoughts tomorrow on the MOU business, if that's okay by you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, PJ.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, we will indeed wrap that conversation up tomorrow. Good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.